What is a tort? Well, we're not talking about the French pastry today. We're talking about a civil wrong in which somebody was harmed. I'm going to be telling you more about that in today's video. If you don't know me, I'm Professor Capko, and I'm here to help you with your legal studies classes. Maybe you're thinking to go to law school. Maybe you're taking a business law class. Maybe you're going to be an accountant. Maybe you want to open a business. People need to know what a tort is, and I'm going to give you an overview today. I'll do later videos which are much more detailed, but today we're just going to do an overview. But first, something wonderful is going to happen for you very soon, so be on the lookout for it. And now, back to the video. What is a tort? Well, there's different types of torts, but essentially we're talking about a civil wrong. When I say civil wrong, I mean that it is not criminal. Now, there are some torts that the action might also be a crime in some cases, and that will be handled separately with a separate criminal proceeding. Today we're just talking about civil proceedings, which are brought by individuals, companies, or governments. I did a prior video in which I discussed the difference between civil and criminal law. I've got that linked up here. I apologize. The audio is not great in that video, so I may redo it at some point. So make sure you hit the notification bell so you know when I do some new videos. But as I said, we're talking about civil wrongs today, and the tort that maybe people are most familiar with would be an auto accident. An auto accident usually falls under the broad band of negligence. Negligence is where somebody breaches a duty to someone else and that other party is harmed by it. I'm going to talk briefly about what the elements are for that and some of the other types of torts, but that's the type that we're most familiar with. Perhaps you drove faster than you should have on a rainy, slick road, and because of that, you skidded out of control and you crashed into somebody else's car, causing them great bodily injury. Well, because you had a duty to drive in a reasonably safe manner, and you breached that duty when you drove too quickly on a wet, rainy road, and the person was harmed as a result of that breach of the duty, you are then liable for damages. And that's a key word there, liable. When we talk about criminal cases, we use terminology such as guilty and not guilty. That language is not used in the world of torts. We talk about someone being liable or not liable. So keep that in mind. There are many other types of torts. Some are like professional malpractice, maybe against a physician. Other types of torts may involve strict or product liability, maybe a product liability case. There's something wrong with a product and somebody was injured. There may be strict liability. Certain types of activities are inherently dangerous, and while they are allowed, they are so dangerous that the party engaged in them is strictly liable for any harm that might come to somebody else as a result of that activity. What would be an example of that? Well, an example of that would be blasting. When they're building a road, for example, through the mountains, oftentimes they use blasting of dynamite to clear a path right through the rock. Well, that is an abnormally dangerous activity, working with dynamite. It's important and it is a useful activity to society because you can then create a road, but it is so abnormally dangerous that if anybody is injured as a result of that blasting, well, the blasting company would be strictly liable regardless of how careful they were. How do they handle that? Well, they get insurance. they would have insurance for it. It would be built into the price of the activity. And of course, they're going to be as careful as possible anyway to try and avoid anybody being injured. So those are some types of torts. These are, like I said, they are generally brought by private citizens. You see lots of attorney billboards. Depending on what jurisdiction you are, there's lots of attorney advertising. Lots of times it's for tort cases. Slip and fall, if you've been injured, those are, often tort cases that they're seeking out. Many times lawyers, they're very lucrative for the lawyers because oftentimes those cases are handled on what's called a contingency fee basis. And what we mean by a contingency fee basis is that when the lawyer recovers and wins money or a settlement for their client, the lawyer gets a cut of that money. So they don't bill by the hour, they get a chunk of money. So even if they only spent a short amount of time on the case and it settles quickly, they still get a large chunk of money. Of course, on the other hand, if the case drags on and goes to trial, the lawyer is going to invest a lot of time, effort, and money into it and may still lose. So there's no guarantees. But there are a lot of personal injury lawyers it depends on what jurisdiction you are, but I think most jurisdictions have lots of them. As I said, auto accidents are a common type. Often those may be resolved directly with insurance companies because depending on the jurisdiction, there might be no fault laws, things like that, where somebody collects on their own insurance and then you don't have a tort case to bring. But depending on whether there's no insurance or something like that, then the case may be brought. But as I mentioned earlier, there are certain elements that the lawyer or the party must prove to win the tort case. And the first one would be the duty, and they would have to know what the duty is for a particular person. Generally, we look at what a reasonable person would do. And so the jury would look at, well, if a reasonable person would be in that situation, what would they do? And then there would be a breach of that duty. You have to prove that the defendant somehow did not live up to that duty. They didn't do what they were supposed to do. And then it gets a little technical, but there's two types of causation. There's cause in fact. We call that the but-for test. But for this breach of duty, the party would not have been injured. And then we have something that's called cause at law. That involves a foreseeability analysis. And that analysis is oftentimes for the judge to do. And finally, the other important element would be for damages. Because if, say, you had a slippery floor and an ordinary reasonable person would not have a slippery floor, but nobody slips, nobody's hurt, well, there's no case. So there actually has to be some kind of harm, either physical injury or pain and suffering, or maybe it's a financial or economic injury. Somebody, because of what you did, can't go to work, and so they lose out on their pay for a certain amount of time. You might be liable to reimburse them for that. So that's just an overview of torts, and I'll go into some more depth in some additional videos. But remember, this is not legal advice. This is for educational purposes only. And if you found this valuable, please share this with your friends or other people that you think might be interested in this. And I do appreciate all the thumbs up that you all are giving me. It really helps with the YouTube algorithm. I also have a membership program. Take a look at that down below. I'd love for you to join me and be one of the members supporting this channel. And we have all kinds of benefits for members, up to and including live chats with me. So look into that, and please subscribe and hit that notification bell so you never miss a video. Thank you.